Welcome back, guys, to the Max Out Show, where today I'm joined by Tyler Ransom, star of the 2020 documentary In the Shed, that has received the perfect 5.0 stars from over 100 reviews on Amazon. Struggling with a debilitating kidney illness since he was a little kid, Tyler's learned lessons from mixed martial arts and jazz music to become, as he calls it, chronically positive. So, Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Max. I'm honored. How are you doing today?
Hey, fantastic, and super excited to have you. And so, to start with, because most of our listeners will not have heard of you before, can you take us back to, I think it was age 2, when your family first discovered this nephrotic syndrome, and how it has impacted your life starting from there?
Of course. A brief rundown. When I was about 18 months, I was diagnosed with a kidney illness called nephrotic syndrome. Nephrotic syndrome, basically, my kidney's filtering system, it shuts down automatically. So sometimes when I pee, a bunch of protein comes out. So think of I pee out all the good stuff and all the bad stuff stays in my body. So, my kidneys just are having a harder time functioning than others. So I've grown up through the years, facing a lot of um, uphill battles, taking a lot of medications, trying to find my way. And when I was about 13, I picked up the guitar and I was able to find my voice. And I've been using my two passions, music and mixed martial arts, to help inspire others and implement change.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. And I think I read somewhere you have taking up to 30 pills a day at some point when you're younger, right? So that
Mhm.
must have been a really hard challenge. And I love how you found these two things that then helped you really develop this positivity because you're being 18 right now, right? Most kids that age, like they don't think about like positivity and happiness or also these big struggles in life in a deep sense. So do you feel like, struggling with that illness has really sort of helped you sort of fast track that whole process of getting into personal development, learning to deal with your mind?
Definitely. It was like in third grade, and I was taking like 18 pills in the morning, and I was getting used to writing down everything that I was eating, all my activities. I think it was at that point where I was like, okay, so I'm definitely not having a normal childhood. And, I just learned how to be a lot more self aware and responsible at a young age. And, thankfully, it's taught me a lot of lessons that sort of put me ahead of the game in high school, ahead of the game in college. So I'm thankful for that because I've been able to mature a lot more than my peers.
Yeah, I bet. I think there's something so beautiful in facing adversity, whether it is sort of forced upon us or whether we choose to engage in difficult things and conversations and situations, because, like you say, it forces us to really level up and grow up much faster than otherwise we would. So I'm really curious, like, becoming this chronically positive, was that sort of an active decision that you made at some point? Or was it really something that just happened with time as you learned to sort of deal with this illness?
That's an interesting thing because it was a little bit of both, if that makes sense. Uh, Still, like growing up, in elementary school, it was still very difficult for me to accept the adverse change that was going on in my body. And then I think it was about in the beginning of middle school where I finally began to like become comfortable with it and like realize that I can use this to spread awareness. It's not my weakness. So I think in the beginning, I was just trying to get used to it. But then as I became like 13, 14, that's when I was like, okay, this is like a decision that I can make. So I'm gonna choose how I look at this. And that's how I sort of snapped into being, chronically positive.
Yeah, I love this so much. So you mentioned this interesting thing that like this is not a weakness. So what was sort of this new belief that you created for yourself that really helped you, live with it more in congruence with this whole thing?
I spent a lot of time just dealing with like, oh man, I have a kidney illness. Like, I'm weak. This is gonna define me. And I was like, I'm not gonna give this the power to define me. I'm gonna use this as a tool to educate others. I'm gonna use this as a tool to spread awareness for others that have the same illness as me. And I'm gonna use this as try and I'm just gonna try to make the world a better place. Try and spread positivity. You know.
Yeah, man, that is honestly so beautiful because, like you say, you have since then used this as a tool. The way you've been connecting with other people, you've inspiring people all over the world, whether it's on the blog or like through the movie and the book is just incredible. So I love how you really learn to reframe this first of all, and then turn this whole thing around. And I think for all of our listeners right now, they're struggling with COVID, with their own health struggles, with their own things. What were really the big things that you've learned from this that you think people can really take away from this, and how they can also learn to reframe this whole situation?
The two main things for me, just right off the bat, I'm still thinking about your question,
Yeah.
but it's just like I'm going fast. It's definitely about perspective and the people you have around you. You know, um, it's how you choose to look at things and see if you could look at them in a better light. Like for instance, me with my illness, I was like in the beginning, I was like very reluctant, and I was like, man, this makes me weak. Then I switched it, and I was like, I can use this as a tool. I'm gonna use this to educate others, and then the people you surround yourself with. If I didn't have my supporting family and my supporting friends, I definitely wouldn't be as as outgoing, as accepting as I am towards myself. So you have to make sure you have those two things.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, watching your documentaries, it really seems like friends and family just are these really upbeat, positive people that have helped you throughout this whole process. And I connected with your dad first, right? You connected with DDP, and that's how we sort of got in touch, which was amazing. I could feel that positivity coming from your dad. So how have you really, or was it really a deliberate decision to bring positive people into your life? Your dad obviously being there, but then also friends, really actively bringing the positive people in there.
Yeah, of course. It's sort of just, it's sort of like, I forgot that saying, but it's like the energy you give out attracts like people like-minded,
Yeah.
something like that, along the
Yeah.
lines of that. But I've always been like a generally positive person. I like to believe, so that's brought positive people to me. And the listeners that don't know, Max is referring to my documentary In the Shed. That's on Amazon Prime. That talks about my kidney illness and my passion for music and how it's led me to this point.
Tell me more about this impact of music. We're talking before the start of this recording that in the beginning of COVID you started practicing really for 10 hours a day. So
I was
obviously
doing
music
that.
is a huge aspect of your life. So tell me what has brought you into your life.
So when I was about 13, I was playing in jazz band for a bit on saxophone. And I had like a huge afro at the time.
Yeah.
So all my friends would be like, it's Jimi Hendrix. And I was
Ah,
like,
yeah,
who
yeah.
is
And tell the
that?
name of your group.
Yeah, oh, Tyler Ransom and the Handsomes. That was the
Yeah.
name of my first group, Tyler Ransom and the Handsomes. So I was like, who's Jimi Hendrix? So I went home, I searched up Jimi Hendrix, and there was like a video of him setting his guitar on fire. I was like, I want to do that. I don't want to play saxophone anymore.
Yeah, you want to be
And
that cool guy.
I, I wanted to be the cool guy. And I picked up guitar, and ever since, I made an album when I was 16 with my band, the Handsomes, Tyler Ransom and the Handsomes. I played shows around LA, and music's just become a huge passion of mine. And as Max said, when quarantine started, there was a little bit to no change because I already spent a lot of time indoors practicing guitar. But I was spending about 10 hours a day practicing in the beginning of quarantine because I was like, I have all this time on my hands, I don't want to waste it.
And that honestly is something that I find over and over again on the show for listeners, right? When listen to all these episodes, right, what you'll find over and over again is that all of our guests, as soon as COVID started or whenever other challenge in their life started, they used that as an opportunity to grow. Meaning, when COVID started, what was it, like 9 months, 10 months ago now, right?
Uh,
Virtually every single guest on the show, whether they were an elite athlete or a writer or a musician or whatever else, they really actively used this time, just like you did, right? To become better, because this is really the season to separate yourself from the rest of everybody else, right? That's just sitting around watching Netflix. And if you're practicing 10 hours a day, then as soon as all of this madness is over, you're gonna go like skyrocket, right? Just through the roof. And I think that is such an important point here, really, also for all of our listeners to take away from this, is that right now is the separation season, especially as we head into Christmas and it's time. This is this lazy, the slow time of the year, right? This is really the time when you can separate yourself from other people, but more importantly, from your former self, right?
that's true.
Yesterday. And I think that's so
Wow.
beautiful.
Beautifully put, Max. That was great. I
I think
like that.
that. No, I think that is so important. I really want to applaud you for that. I really want to dive deep, into this music thing. Do you feel like that has helped you really learn to deal with the pain also?
It,
I mean, huge fan of like this whole concept of like flow and really, when you're getting in the zone, you forget everything else. So was that sort of part of this whole thing?
what attracted me most to guitar was that when I played it in the beginning, it was like I discovered a voice I didn't know I had. I was able to communicate all these different internal thoughts, thoughts of like pain, thoughts of joy. I was able to sort of express it all through how I bent the strings, how I played certain notes, played certain notes. Yeah, I said that right. And to this day, that's one of the main driving forces of why I still play guitar, because it gives me a voice that I don't think I have when I speak. I don't know if that makes sense,
Yeah,
but
that's so interesting. So
little
what are
bit.
some of these emotions right now that you're trying to share?
Um, a lot of it is just like internal. Like I've been doing a lot of reflection as well, writing a lot of poetry during this time. I'm writing a lot. I'm playing a lot of just like how I feel on the inside. How like sometimes like if I feel sad, I write a sad song. I play like sad notes on my guitar. If I feel happy, I bend my notes a certain way on the guitar. It's a really beautiful thing.
Wow, so it really sounds like this allows you to really more fully express yourself and the way that you actually feel that maybe you can quite share with words.
Exactly, exactly. You hit the nail on the head.
Wow. That's amazing. I think especially during these times, right? And again, for our listeners, like whatever that thing is for you, because we all have something like that, right? For me, for example, it's running. That just gives me this sense of complete freedom and connection to life and to how I feel, right? And so all of us have something, and I think the more you could connect to these things that truly give you like the sense of complete like being yourself, the happier you're going to be in life, and the more you're also going to be able to deal with all the stresses and struggles and all that crazy stuff that's going on right now.
It's
So that's
important
amazing.
to live passionately.
Yes, exactly. So how does mixed martial arts then fit in there? I know
Yeah,
you
so
started
mixed
from a
martial.
very, very young age. So you're getting like that yellow belt and like you're like probably 6 or so.
Exactly. My dad put me in kinder karate as a young child, and that sort of skyrocketed everything else. I went from karate to Muay Thai to jiu-jitsu, and I started jiu-jitsu when I was like 9 or 10,
Oh,
and been doing it ever since. It's been a crazy ride, but mixed martial arts was my first passion. I'm very grateful for my dad. He put me into that, and that's where on the mat was when I was able to first find self-confidence, who I was. It was essentially my first passion before the guitar, but that's how mixed martial arts plays a role in my life. It's been
yeah.
a crazy ride as well.
I loved it. Yeah, how do you think it helped you really build that confidence that you mentioned?
So jiu-jitsu, I'm not sure if you're aware. It's a lot like grappling. Think of like
I did
wrestling
judo,
or
but nothing else, unfortunately.
all right. So you sort of know it. So it's like on the mat. It's like a chess game. It's a mental chess game. It doesn't matter about like your age or like how strong you are. Well, sometimes it does, but mainly like not really. uh, and it's all about how you like outmaneuver your opponent. And on the mat, I was able to, like you said with running, how it gives you freedom. On the mat, I was able to experience freedom because I was playing all the technicalities in my head and putting it onto the mat, and it was I wasn't labeled by my kidney illness. I was labeled by just like Tyler, the yellow belt, the green belt at the time, and it was great. It gave me a freedom I didn't know I had.
Yeah, I bet. I love that so much. So how's that this sort of identity evolved for you since then? You mentioned, Tyler the kidney affiliate and Tyler yellow belt to green belt. Like, what is sort of this version of Tyler today?
Um, I don't know if it makes sense, but it's like just Tyler now. Before it
Yeah.
had all these other things attached to it. Tyler the jiu-jitsu kid, Tyler the musician, or just like, Tyler the kid who's chronically positive. But it's sort of just morphed. I've sort of just morphed all my worlds like together. And it's just like,
Yeah.
it's just Tyler now. It's a lot of things to unpack, but we're keeping it short and sweet.
Yeah, no, I love this so much. I think this process of becoming more integrated, of taking all of these different things and really bringing this into one person is really the journey that we're all on, right? I think
Of course.
from what it sounds like, it really you started off, and I was the same way, which is why I can relate so much. It's really identifying based on like all this external stuff, right? Whether
There
it's
we go.
successes or failures or illnesses, and like we sort of say, hey, because of this I'm good, or because of this I'm bad, right? And then as
Hmm.
you learn to sort of go more internal, you really decide who you are and not sort of what you are on the outside. Is
Exactly.
that yeah?
That was, again, beautifully put, Matt. Wow.
Thank you.
I,
No, I think that's an incredible journey you've been on. So I'd love to learn more about these 5-step system they talk about to stay chronically positive.
of
It's
course.
as I mentioned before, for such a young person, such an incredible thing to think so deeply about this and then help other people sort of approach life in the same way. So can you share these steps and how people can really start implementing in their lives?
Of course. So the top three things that worked for me, I'm just gonna go into the top three so I don't go like overboard, and
Yeah.
we're gonna keep things at a pace. So the first one, it's like a lot that we've already talked about, just live passionately, which is, I had guitar at the time, mixed martial arts, like how you had running. It's important that you find a passion and you get to live through it, reasons to get out of bed. I think it's important to have a driving force to keep yourself motivated because, again, like you said, Max, I'm just going to piggyback off you a lot. um, a lot of people have Netflix at this time and they're just feeling very little motivation. I feel like living without a passion sucks a lot of joy out of life that you could be having. So it's important to find a passion and, to just live passionately. Another one, the second step, which we also already talked about, is to surround yourself with family and friends, positive forces in your life. You end up becoming a product of the people you surround yourself with. There's a simpler way of putting that. I forgot what it was, but if you surround yourself with negative forces, negative people, you're going to become a negative person, I think. So it's important that you keep a circle of friends that you trust, positive friends that can reinforce positive actions from you. You could change your mentality through them because you essentially become the people you hang around. And stay informed. Know what's going on with you, what's going on in the world. Whenever I'd be prescribed a new medication, my dad would require me to research it so I would know it's being put in my body. And that's how I stayed informed with my illness, the things that was going on with me. So I'm just always aware of what's happening internally. And those three specific steps I think are the most important right now for people. So we're gonna keep it at that right now, just because I feel like a lot of people can use those steps right now in this time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, all three of them so vitally important. I mean, friendships, relationships, anything is really. I mean, science has shown this for listeners, right? It's like the single best predictor for your long-term happiness. And so, if you're hanging around people that just don't make you happy, you're not gonna fulfill your potential in terms of happiness and joy and laughter and love and all of that. And so, I think that is so vitally important. It really seems like you've done a phenomenal job of finding the people in your life and really actively bringing them to it. And then like we said before, like finding a passion, right, and just doing things that are fun, right? I think this is really where it starts, finding things that like just where you forget your time, right, you forget about everything else and you're just in the moment, whether it's playing guitar,
Exactly.
gardening, whatever, is so important. So I absolutely love that.
Exactly. Exactly. Max, you're the perfect hype man.
Of course, of course. Natalia, I'm super curious. You've mentioned a couple of quotes. I know you're a very reflective guy. So do you have a favorite mantra or quote that you try to live your life by?
Ooh, that's a hard one. That's
Oh
a
yeah.
hard one. Yeah, I've had a couple. I've had a couple throughout quarantine. I've had a couple different. At the moment, right now, it's a smooth sea has not made a skilled sailor.
Oh,
A smooth sea has not made a skilled sailor. So like a sailor has always had to deal with crazy waves and everything, and it makes them a stronger sailor in the end. So I'm thinking, with all this adversity, I'm gonna come out stronger. You know, you learn from your mistakes. That's basically what that quote means for me. So,
Yeah.
to simplify it.
Yeah, that is so important, especially again during these times, right? Where like, the sea definitely is not smooth for anybody. But the truth is that like after this, whenever this is over in a couple of months, hopefully, we're all gonna become stronger because of it. We'll all
Hmm.
have a higher tolerance for stress, maybe, for problems, for challenges, whether it's interpersonal or anything else in our lives, and we've all learned how to deal with all of these things. And I always look at this adversity as sort of a gym, right? It's a mental gym.
Mental
COVID or
gym.
maybe your illness, right? It's nothing else than a mental gym that allowed you to get stronger.
Hmm.
And so I absolutely love that quote. I think it's so important to always live by that.
Do you have a mantra that you're going by throughout this time? I'm curious.
Yes, yes. For me, it's really carpe diem. It's seize the day. This Latin phrase, right?
I
Because
like that. I like that.
for me, what I've realized, the most important thing is every single day you've got to wake up, you've got to live as if it was the last day. Because the truth is, none of us are guaranteed another day, right? Especially with this COVID thing right now. But anything, right? A friggin' bus could hit you, right? It could hit you or your loved ones. And so for me, what this really means is waking up every day and asking myself three questions. How can I grow the most? How can I serve the most? And how can I live the most? And really focusing on these three things, make sure that like, if tomorrow I'm gonna die, at least today I had a friggin' amazing last day.
That's wow. Again, Max Early.
Now I'm super curious. What do you think? I know you're around a lot of people, you study people a lot, you reflect a lot. What do you think is the biggest thing that sort of holds people back from being chronically positive?
Um, Definitely themselves, I think. A lot of people are scared to try things that make them uncomfortable. That being said, they're scared to get out of their element, you know? They're scared of what other people will think. And I just wish people would try more. I wish people would go into what makes them uncomfortable and embrace growing. You know, I feel like a lot of people are also reluctant to change, to change the flow up. But I feel like it's when you go against the flow that you grow more. So I wish people would try more. That's what I think,
Yeah.
personally.
How have you learned to embrace sort of this authenticity? I mean, you talked before about really finding your own voice in music, but finding your own voice and then sharing your own voice are oftentimes two very different things, right? So what has allowed
Exactly.
you to make that step from finding a thing and then actually being able to share it without this fear or failure or fear of, what will other people think of me?
Just a lot of self-confidence, just believing in yourself. You know, when I was 16 and I released my first album, I was so scared putting it out because I don't know, teenagers are just really harsh. So I was scared of, putting my voice out for the first time, releasing songs that meant a lot to me, meant a lot to me. And when I put it out, it was embraced with open arms, and I was like, oh, I went I went out and did something that made me uncomfortable, but I grew a lot because I learned that people accept what I'm writing. And to this day, that's still a huge inspiration of mine because that's one of the first times I stepped out of my comfort bubble and I grew a lot from it. You know, it's led me to write my second album now, which I did during quarantine.
Yeah.
So I'm in the process of finishing that. Very exciting. And yeah, going against the norm.
Yeah, I love that. Now, if you could give our listeners just one challenge to take away from today and really start applying today in their lives, what would be that one thing?
Um, Give me a second. I'm trying to
Sure.
think of something like uh
Something deep and like life changing and
something. Yeah, I guess the bar isn't that high, but think of something that makes you uncomfortable and take a step towards achieving it. You know? Yeah. Well, no. Think of how about this? We're gonna switch it up.
Oh yeah.
Think of a weakness you have and work towards making it one of your strengths. How about that? It's where
Love
I've
that. Love that. And you're
it's
the prime example of that. So
exactly. It's through my weaknesses that I've learned how to how to become a stronger person because I've turned my weaknesses into my strength.
Love that. Now, before I ask my final question, where can listeners connect with you online? Where can they find you?
Of course. So like I said, I have my second album coming out next year in February. It's called Ends Well. I'm very excited. Very excited. You can find me on Instagram at Soulful Playing. That's where I post my guitar videos. But if you want to see me day to day, just living my cool life as a university student, Tyler Ransom. And tylerransom.com, we're going to be having merchandise because Max, my first single from the new album, is coming out this week, which is very
Way to
exciting.
go!
Called Back to You. We have merchandise coming out. And tylerransom.com at Soulful Playing. There you go, Max. Beautiful time.
Perfect. We'll link to all of this. Now, finally, final question. What does it mean for you to max out your life?
I think that means to embrace everything. You know, like how a video game, how you have different stats for like different characters, like stamina, health, energy. I think max out life, you already know, to like be like at 100% for everything. And it's definitely not something that you do overnight. It's something that you do day to day. But to max out your life, I think, is to embrace all your challenges and to just grow as much as you can and change as many people as you can.